Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Fired Up with CJ show. We have Dr. Paul White here, and he's talking about his book, Five Languages of Appreciation, that is going to be coming out soon, updated to include information about working with remote employees and millennials. And today, we're going to talk about a survey that he completed about what to do with employees during the holiday season. So, welcome back, Paul.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. It's always fun to
Thank you.
talk to you. All
Yeah.
right. So, what were kind of some of the key findings that you had from your holiday research?
Yeah. So what we did is we have 75,000 plus people on our newsletter that we occasionally ask for input and sent out a poll and asked them what they liked and didn't like about the holidays related to both sort of just personally and also work. And because even though they're supposed to be fun and all that, a lot of people really don't like them. And so it's like, well, is there anything we can do about it?
Mm,
And also because, a lot of HR people or managers spend a lot of time and effort trying to plan events and parties. And when you get negative stuff back, it's like, screw this. Why should I do this?
right.
And are there some ways to make it better or not,
Hmm.
so interestingly, just at a personal life level, the thing that when it was at 47% people said the worst thing about the holidays is fighting traffic. They just, the
Mm,
increased traffic of people shopping and all that. And the second one was the increased expense of the holidays as far as buying gifts and that kind of
mm,
stuff.
hmm.
But at work, it's an interesting dilemma in that uh, you just have a broad spectrum of what people want. Some people don't want to do anything. Some people want to. Some people want it during work hours. Some people don't, and they get offended if you do it at night or in the weekends. And, it is sort of, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, if you're trying to plan unless, I think a key part is to do the best you can to get input and feedback from people ahead of time, and also sort of have a diversity of representatives on the planning committee, if you will. I mean,
Mm.
not just the HR person and the CEO or whatever what they want to do, because lots of times what they want and what they think the employees want is very different.
Mm, mm. So when they did the survey, what did you find? I mean, what percentage of people, I don't know if these are the questions that you asked, but since you mentioned it, was there kind of a half 50-50, or was there a clear sense of like how many people thought that they should do it during the day? How many people thought that it should be skipped entirely? What did you find?
Yeah, let me yeah, sort of summarize. So the number one thing that people really didn't like about the holidays at work is the pressure to get things done at year end.
Mm, yeah.
Um, and that really sort of messed up the holidays for them. So, I mean, one thing to think about that is either to plan ahead a little bit more, or also sometimes we put artificial deadlines on things that don't have to be done by January 30th. I mean, obviously the financials need to be sort of closed out, but as far as all the reporting and all that, uh, a lot of times you're not going to look at it till the second week of January or even later, after January 31st. So I think sometimes reevaluating what has to be done
Mm,
versus what you would like,
yeah.
and sort of give a little bit of more time and spread on that.
Well, it's funny. I was talking to someone at a woman's get together, and she said, "Oh, I'm just dreading the next couple of weeks." So this is my, this woman get together was kind of her like bonus. And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Well, I work in retail, and 10% of our sales is
Mm,
included in this whole Black Friday thing. So if this Black Friday event doesn't go well, it's just this kind of doom
right.
and gloom and pressure all leading up to a certain kind of date. And everyone has these holiday promotions. So I can see in retail, even I was talking to someone in Starbucks, there are certain types of drinks like
Right.
the pumpkin spice latte. Like there's this
Right.
whole build up. There's someone had told me there's millions of people on the that are on the Frappuccino page. Like they, like, it's like so I can see how retail would be kind of
Yeah.
oriented that way.
Yeah.
I myself was in finance, and so at the end of the year, especially if your company is reporting on the calendar year, it's just you're getting all of the end of year reports done, and you can't get them done until the very last expenses are in until December 31st. So there's just this
Right.
constant crunching. So I think there are certain industries that you can't escape that, and you can't
Well,
mitigate how to mitigate in those industries that have that
well,
dynamic.
and even like in the medical world, I mean, I mean, obviously you got winter, but I mean, docs like to take off time at Christmas,
Right.
and part of it is a management issue ahead of time. It's like, hey, only certain number of people can take off, for how long, and you have to develop a plan or a process for sort of rotating that over
Right.
time. Uh, but otherwise, just asking for trouble for yourself. And I think that's actually a key theme in all of this is managing expectations. Um, because, essentially our feeling responses, I'm a psychologist, I'm supposed to understand stuff, that, you have an event and you have your expectations, and if those match, you tend to feel pleased. If they
Yeah.
don't match, you're either disappointed or angry or frustrated or whatever it might be. And so part of this whole process around the holidays is managing expectations. It's not going to be like the best party you've ever had, and it's probably going to have some parts that you like, hopefully, and some parts that you don't like. And welcome to life, I mean,
Right. Yeah.
and so one of the things I've seen with different organizations, like the during the day or not, is, I mean, I think it probably differs a lot according to industry and geography, but there's usually a pretty fair split. It might be 60-40 or something like that, but it's not 90-10. And so I think helping people understand that this year we're doing it we're doing a luncheon thing,
Right.
and we're doing it during the day. Next year, because we know other people like, and so you got to have a broader time frame rather than just this year, right?
Right. That's
And,
actually a really good idea. And it's funny because the same thing happens with all organizations, including families. And it's like we were just talking about our own families, right? And which kids are going to be spending Thanksgiving with you and which ones aren't, because as get bigger, the organization gets bigger, you have to make trade-offs. So in my
right,
family, it was always like, okay, you do Christmas with your family and Thanksgiving, and we're going to alternate back and forth
right.
depending on what season. So every family gets Thanksgiving together every other year. Everyone gets Christmas together every other year. But there is this kind of expectation that everyone's needs will get met, but maybe
Right.
not in the first year. I like
And
that.
and and again, it's sort of like psychologists, we sort of major in the obvious, but it's like, if you communicate about it, it might go better than if you don't
Right.
communicate about it, right?
Right.
So, you know, and like this year, we're going to Louisiana where one of my sons lives, and everybody's going there because not everybody's been there. And I think we had to do some negotiating with some of the, extended family or in-law kind of people. Uh, but when they understood what was going on, it was fine. But if we would
Yeah.
have just said, they can't make it, they got to go to Louisiana, some of it's common sense. But our brain glitches or we do
Yeah,
something.
because we're like, I expected this, and now you didn't, like, you don't tell the person soon enough. So then their expectations are like, you're not coming? You're going
Right.
to Louisiana? And it's like, no, it's
You
gonna be,
don't love me.
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
and actually, that's really one of the problems with communication. There's different kinds of messages, right? There's facts. I mean,
Right, right.
December 20th, 27th in Louisiana, how you feel about it. But there's one that's underneath the layer that we miss a lot of time, and those are called implied relational messages. And it's
Mm.
what I'm saying
Ah.
about you that you should do or you shouldn't, or about our relationship. And that whole sort of guilt thing, you don't love
Mm.
me. No, it's not that I don't love you. It's that this is the way this calendar worked out.
Uh, oh, that's just at this very moment in our
Right.
in our family dynamics, that is just that helped, like bing, a little light bulb went on, because there is. So if we actually don't make it personal, but we go into the example that you gave, people who want to have it during the day, it's like, hey, you don't want to sit here, I don't want to actually go into the traffic, don't you love me, don't I matter in your
Right.
world, isn't the relationship with me mean something to you? Are you saying that you don't care about people with kids who don't live in the city?
Oh, yeah,
Right?
yeah. Yeah, then all of a sudden it's like, you don't like kids, you don't like families. you know, you're a jerk.
Yeah. Don't you like to
And
plan it? Like there's just
yeah,
because it's the implied relationship. So you said the
but what's
implied relationship, the fact, and what else are
and
parts of it?
feelings, and just
Oh.
how we feel about what's going on. But it's that implied one that it has to be brought up and made overt, right? Because
Mm,
it's like in a business setting, you might say, uh, you know, that your report was late last week. Okay,
mm-hmm.
it's a fact, right?
Yeah.
And and so a person could take that and interpret. So what you saying I'm late all the time,
Right.
or whatever? It's no. I'm just saying it was late last time. You're usually getting on time. I didn't know what was, if there was an issue or concern. So anyway, so you have to be proactive about it, right? Either uh, usually as the receiver, because you receive it and you're wondering what are they meaning, and say you can affirm, yeah, I was late, and you can give a little explanation and say, is there something else? Because it's usually an implied of something you should do or shouldn't do differently next time.
Ah, okay. There's nothing that you should or shouldn't do differently next time. It's just that it was late and I wanted to make sure you're okay. Because is
Yeah,
everything okay, right? Which is completely different than because then the person has to make meaning out of it's not uncommon for a person trying to make meaning like why is he telling me about the report. So how does that apply to the holiday party scenario? So you're saying, hey,
so it's about expectations, and it's like, hey, the more that you can be upfront, say, we know that some of you like to do it during the day and some of it you don't. We can't please everybody all the time, and so we've chosen that we're going to sort of try to, alternate. And so this year, this is what's happening, and if you don't want to come, that's fine. And I think that's a key part. Choice is a nice part of life, and you affirm that and say, we'd love to have you, but if it doesn't work for you, I understand.
right.
Uh, am I gonna, send dinner to your house, as a makeup? Probably not. I mean,
Right.
it's
Are we
like,
going to have the day? Are we going to have like a night party and an evening party? So all parties will be happy. So, like, come on Friday night and then Monday morning or Monday lunch. No, we're just going to have one event and we'll alternate because we
right.
recognize that there are differences. So, what are some other key differences in so
Well,
setting expectations, key differences? What else?
so one of the big things that people really don't like is they don't like any form of gift exchange at work. Okay, so I mean, whether it's white elephant things, and you sort of give and take, or even just sort of an expectation to give gifts, that just creates a lot of weirdness for people, and they really don't like the white elephant stuff. I mean, there's apparently a few people that do because they keep happening, but and I
What
don't
white
mind them. But
elephant is when you bring some really weird gift and it's kind of like, haha. Is that what white elephant is?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and also you can exchange it. So yeah, there's an order, and so yeah,
You each
lots of
draw
times.
numbers, and then like there's some, and like whoever gets the worst thing, they're kind of like they
Well,
end
you
up.
can exchange it. The next person can say, "Oh, hey, I instead of opening one, I'm going to take yours."
Yes.
Okay, so
Okay.
then that person gets to open it. And the problem with that is either, yeah, there's some like really strange, weird ones, or what happens actually more often is people don't do that because they feel weird about that. So they get nice stuff
Yeah.
as the gift when you're not supposed to. And then the people that did the funny stuff feel bad because, they didn't get a, $50 card to Starbucks or
Right.
whatever. And so it's just, uh,
What
you
am I
know,
going to do with this chia pet? Like, why? All right,
yeah.
so it's basically don't do gift exchanges, period. And what's weird to have, do people explain, is there a narrative on what, aside from like not getting crappy stuff, some people getting stuff they like, and then some people getting shafted because their number was so bad that they just
Well,
got,
it's just, gifts are a very individual, personal kind of thing that come from our history, right? And
mm,
so if you don't have that kind of history with your colleagues or your supervisor or people that report to you, it's sort of hard to know. Some families do it big, and if you don't do it big, it's not a gift. And other people, it's the thought that counts, and some personal thing. And so I guess it's not that you shouldn't at all, but I think you need to be clear about why you're doing it,
mm-hmm.
and it really is, I think, an issue of authenticity versus image or trying to look good or whatever it is, because that tends to not go well, right?
Right.
And so it's like, hey, let's say they're a sports fan of, I don't know, the 49ers or the
Right.
Seattle, Seahawks, and you say, I know you like these guys, and I saw this, and I thought you might sort of like it, and it doesn't have to be a big deal, but it's about a personal connection,
Right.
and that you thought about.
Yeah, I think the thing that's always hard, I think, in gift giving is the reciprocity.
Hmm.
So I may say, "Oh, I've really enjoyed so much the interviews that we've had, Paul, that I have like a big, basket full of goodies from Seattle." I don't, but let's say I did that, right? You'd be
Right.
like, "Oh crap! Like I'm not
Exactly.
sending anything to CJ. Now I feel bad, but it's not because I don't appreciate it. I just didn't like. I didn't
Yeah.
know we were doing this,
Right. Right.
So I think
Eh,
that that's hard too."
Yeah, and I think I don't know. I might be out of touch and super cross-cultural about this, but I think you bring it down to a personal level. I mean, it's not about organization. I mean, for my company, I don't send gifts or cards to people because I didn't know where to draw the line. It's just like, and it felt like a superfluous act for me
Right.
versus there are a few people that I, really do value, appreciate their input in my life or whatever this last year, and I'll think of a little something. But it's about the person. It's not about the business
So
relationship.
it's like it's about an authentic sense of like I thought about you, and I know it's Christmas, so I wanted to get something to you. So authentic,
Yeah,
versus oh, so and so. I need my admin to be happy, and probably would help if I gave her a gift because she always gives me a gift, and I'm gonna feel weird if I don't. So I'll
right.
just get her some flowers or
Well,
whatever.
and one of the languages of appreciation is tangible gifts. But people confuse organizational gifts, especially at the holidays, with a personal gift. So if I get a fruit basket, or if we at our office get a fruit basket from, a vendor or something like that, it's not from the vendor to me, right? It's from that company to our staff, which
Hmm.
is okay. But I don't know how much impact that has at a relational level
Right.
versus if I know that person and that owner there and we worked together on a project this year, got it done, and I get him or her something and say, hey, man, really glad we worked on that, got it
Right.
done. That's very different.
Right.
So
Yeah,
I
so
think,
if you're going to give a gift, don't use it as a form of manipulation. Although it seems like it could be a love language, right? Like it's if someone's like, "This is how I feel appreciated," and I
mhm.
that's my love language, and you may give them a gift.
But it's interesting in the workplace. So we've had 165,000 people take our online assessment, the
Hmm.
Motivating by Appreciation Inventory. 6%, only 6% of employees cite gifts as their primary language of appreciation in the workplace. That's
Mm,
different. Love language is personal relationships, and appreciation in the workplace. Because I think there is a weirdness about it, and I don't think we expect that as much. But again, for those that it is meaningful, it's more about a personal thing. It's like, you bring somebody in, like I have an assistant, we just found out she loves licorice, right?
mm-hmm,
And so it's like, hey, I thought you'd enjoy this. It's not a big
mm,
deal. It's just listening and hearing what they like and getting to
right,
know them as a person.
right,
But I don't think you're going to miss a lot of people if you don't give gifts, in the
right,
workplace. And the other thing to know is that just there are a lot of people that like to give gifts, but they don't necessarily like to get them. That's not what
right.
jazzes them. So,
Yes, yes, and it's okay if because otherwise this expression of love and appreciation turns into like I feel guilty, like we were saying before. So if you were to get a gift to your boss, I mean, what's an appropriate thing to get? That's not like here's a gift card to Amazon,
yeah,
just it's just an exchange of money,
yeah.
basically. What's a good gift to
Well,
get?
I think it is finding out about them and what they like and what they enjoy. So if it's, I know an example of an assistant that liked cashews. And,
Hmm.
cashews can be a little bit expensive, just
Yeah,
to go through. And so you get them a can of cashews. Say, hey, it's not a big deal, but I thought you might enjoy snacking on these. Or at the pumpkin spice latte, if you stop at Starbucks and you're bringing coffee in, you bring one that you know that they like.
yeah,
So it's more about really getting to know them as a person and sort of outside of work. You know, I think you have to be careful about monetary value stuff because of that reciprocity and also
Yeah.
perceived.
So like I'm thinking cashews, like I'm thinking $15 or less.
Yeah,
15 is
yeah,
kind of like the not feeling awkward about it.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, the government has you can't spend $10 more for between government employees.
Ten
They get all.
dollars or more. Okay, so $10. I can give you a $10 like okay, got it. So like pumpkin spice
But a
latte
gift
now
card.
at $6 that
Yeah,
you're almost done. You're
yeah, yeah.
done.
It's a latte with a bow, right? So, but but a gift card is actually I think the wrong way to go unless you know a specific store or that they're really wanting a specific
Yeah,
item book. That you might as well get them the book if you know that they
right.
like this book. So
Yeah.
gift
Okay.
cards. mm,
And what else did you find out from this holiday survey? What prompted you to send out this holiday survey, and
Well,
what else
because
did you find?
everybody complains about it all the time.
So how did it come up? They're like, Paul, what should I do about like what in what context did you get the
I
sense?
think just socially, I'm hearing people complain about their holiday parties and they're so busy and they have to do this and they have to get a babysitter or whatever. And so I'm like, well, it's interesting to hear, what people want. And also just planning my own staff party,
Right,
it's like what do they want? And I want to do something that's meaningful and not just rote,
right.
and I don't want to spend money just to spend money. But I had a division as well. So, I had to
Oh, I
figure it out.
see. So you basically like I have to figure out my holiday party. I have these thousands of people who will just answer me.
Let me give you a clue about being a psychologist. Part of being a psychologist is if I'm experiencing this problem, probably other people are too. So let's figure it out. All right. So now the answers aren't always the same, but
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, I think actually let's extend this. And I'm sure you've had to figure this out too, like birthday parties. Like, do we do birthday parties or not? What have you ever done research or can you survey your people in that
Yeah, I
house?
haven't. I'll tell you what. So here, employee recognition programs, are out there, and like 90% of most companies have them. And one employee recognition thing is to get an email on your birthday, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's like happy birthday. That's fine. I mean, the computer generated, the HR people typed it in. I mean, it doesn't feel real personal. And in fact, that's part of the problem and why we differentiate between authentic appreciation and employee recognition because
Mm,
recognition is pretty organizational, it's impersonal, and it just doesn't feel very genuine. And
mm-hmm.
so, you know, th- having said that, there are in performance-based recognition programs that can be good and effective if they're set up to reward certain behaviors and goals that you're wanting. But
Right.
that doesn't necessarily make the person feel valued as a person. It makes them understand that you like the task that you got done, and that's a
Right.
difference. I mean, one of the themes that we sort of really harp on is that employees happen to be people too.
Mm-hmm.
We have lives both at work. We're a person at work. We have lives outside of work, and so if we feel like our employer or colleagues, whomever, only treat us as a task getter doner kind of person, uh, it starts to feel, you know, reductionistic.
Right.
That I'm more than that. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
good at this, but and so I don't want to just hear good things when I've exceeded my quota for the month, or a quarter.
So let's go back to the gal that I met. And I think that this is very typical. At the end of the year, there's this whole idea of an end of the year bonus, of which comes the implied relationship piece, right? And then it comes like, how worthy am I to the organization? All these things. I don't know if you've ever looked at bonuses and those kinds of things that are typical of this year. There are plenty of Christmas comedies when someone loses their bonuses, they
Right.
can't afford to, like you said, of the two big problems, they can't afford to buy all the. It's a financial crush where they're already feeling like I have a really nice vacation, a lot of presents, and I was depending on that bonus, and now it's not coming, or the company has gone through their financials and like we just can't afford to do those kinds
Right.
of things. What are your thoughts? I'm sure clients have come to you with these kinds of scenarios. What to do when those scenarios happen?
Well, first of all, one of the things we know, and there's great research. In fact, rewrote the five languages of appreciation, big chapter on sort of the business benefits of appreciation, as compared to like financial compensation. Money is a very poor but short-term motivator. I mean, it's a poor one long-term. Nobody's going to turn the money back, right? It's like,
Right.
but it really lasts for a very short time, and it has one research study showed it only had 2% contribution to how much a person really enjoyed their work was how much money they got.
Wow. Wow.
Um, and lots of times, especially in the financial world, people sort of lose sight of that and don't realize that it's partly how you treat people with respect, how involved they are, the whole employee engagement thing, and appreciation is a part of that, feeling appreciated for you as a person, not just as a producer. And so, yeah, bonuses are there. And I tell you what, because I've lived it. I grew up in a family-owned business, and lived the whole bonus thing. Don't count on it, kind of thing.
Right.
Human nature is you count on it, right? You start
Right.
to expect it.
I
I
was
don't.
expecting last year you gave me,
Yeah,
whatever, and I was expecting at least that. Now it's
yeah,
half of that. Like, what? How do
yeah.
you deal
And
with
even
that?
if, yeah, and again, I think it's communicating early. You
Yeah.
know, and although I mean, lots of people are get sort of weird about sharing, P&L stuff along the way, but it's like, hey, we're not making as much money. Some things have dropped, and so there's not going to be as much bonus. We're going to try to do a little something, and if you say that, you better have a little something. But it's more not only in advance, but repetitively. I mean,
What do you
people
mean? Oh, tell them in
would think,
advance. Like, so you tell them
well,
in like when in November, October, when you're like, wow, things aren't looking good for this quarter.
and then in November, begin. I mean, it's repetitive messages versus just expecting them to hear and sort of accept one message that may be a flyby. Because lots of times those messages make the managers or the executives nervous, and so they don't like to spend a lot of time on that.
Ah, right.
And so
So
it can be sort of like, and we may not have much of a bonus,
yeah, in
catch you
October, like
next
no,
week.
but yeah, run off the stage, right? But I think actually it's fair to say I think that that would help if October. I'm like, hey, we're looking at this year, we're coming about 30% short of what we thought. Shareholders are kind of, whatever is pressing us, fund people, whatever is making it really hard for us, and so it's going to impact, our bonuses. So I just want to get people to get heads up on that. November, we're looking at this. It looks like we're probably going to be 40% short. I'm not sure what the impact on the bonuses, but expect less or whatever. So then people are like, oh, 40% less. I don't know what to assume. I mean,
Right.
that level of expectation setting?
Maybe. I mean, it depends on who you're talking to. You may not be talking to the front line people, in the phone bank,
Right.
but mid-level and above managers or whatever. I, I think the bigger question or issue really, and is the issue of culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of workplace culture, which has been a huge issue in the last year or so. And one of the things that people don't understand about culture is most people think about culture as being very external. It's sort of like it's out there and it happens. But
Right.
in actuality, culture is really the accumulated effect of thousands of individual interactions. And
Mm-hmm.
so you can change your culture. Now, it can be tough and all that, but you can, especially your microculture right around you, who you relate to on a day-to-day basis, and it has to do with you, and it's about how you relate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so whether or not you communicate, how you communicate, what you communicate, versus, I mean, I do a webinar on communication problems, and the worst way to communicate is to not communicate. Hello? Yeah. Yes, you can quote me on that, CJ.
Yes, that's an important one. That goes with the. I read a book from the Dalai Lama on how to be happy, and the first sentence was just do things that make you happy. I'm like, okay, that seems super obvious, but yet
Yeah.
it was profound.
We forget it, and people, they don't want to communicate bad news. Well, hey, man, people are thinking it, so you might as well get the facts out there,
Yeah.
and just make that happen. But I guess my point is, you can focus on the financial and the bonuses, but if people feel valued and appreciated as a person, as a team member, they can roll with the financial. I mean, anybody who's got any kind of history of maturity knows that things go up and down. In fact, we know, I mean, research shows 79% of the people that leave a job say that one of the primary reasons they leave is that they didn't feel valued or appreciated.
Mm,
Most managers and business leaders think people leave for more money. Now, that may be part of the mix, but it's not what drives them, because leaving a job is a very emotional, taxing
mm-hmm,
kind of process,
mm-hmm,
disengaging, finding, and all that. And it takes an emotional driver. And it's
mm,
usually when something's happened and they just feel like they don't give a rip about me, they don't listen to me, they don't,
right.
they'll keep taking from me as long as I'm alive,
Okay,
kind of.
so two things related to that. There's annual reviews of which sometimes I don't know what companies you're doing. Maybe you can tell me. It used to be that you'd have like what I've seen is that some companies have like midpoint reviews. Some people have like pulse reviews throughout the whole time. Some people probably still have the annual review, of which that happens during right now during this season.
Right,
And then there's also this kind of laying off of people also happens at the season.
right,
Um, because of the financials. So I want
right.
to talk about those two things. So in writing annual reviews, what are some of the and basically what I'm hearing you say is that appreciating someone and truly recognizing who there is one of the best things you can do. It that's one of the ways that you can do it is through your annual review. What are some things that you
But
see
I would
as
let me interrupt.
yeah
But I would say if you only do it at the end of review, you're screwed,
okay
because to hear a word or some act of appreciation once a year just doesn't get it done.
okay
And usually an annual review. And by the way, most companies or a lot of companies are moving away at least from the annual to two, maybe three kinds of
every
touch
quarter
points.
I see
Yeah.
okay
And so, which is good, I think. Um, but if you only, annual review tends to have, both positives, did this well, but it's also it has growth areas, right?
right.
Uh, so, and
Areas
so,
where you effed up basically or need a lot of help, gap analysis.
and what do people remember when they leave? They
Yeah, all
remember,
the areas where you effed up or like you
yeah,
need areas to strengthen or
right,
whatever.
right. And
Yeah.
so in essence, I sort of tease that you sort of wasted whatever encouragement or praise you gave because they didn't hear it, they didn't remember it, right? So
Um,
I would sort of separate the two. I mean, you can give them positives, but don't expect to remember it. They're going to have to hear it someplace else,
mm,
and some other time. Now, what's interesting about the frequency thing is younger workers. One of the key things that's different about them is they like more feedback more often,
right. The
and,
kind
and
of
not
pulse
not only
survey.
positive. I mean, I think they've been painted as praise me all the time, but they also want corrective feedback more often. They don't want to wait for a quarter or something. So I think it's helpful to have sort of whether it's a continuous kind of feedback kind of thing. I don't know if that's practical, but both positive and corrective. That if you're going to lead and continue to have millennials and younger as part of your team, you got to communicate more than just once or twice a
Can
year.
I share with you, and you probably know this already, but folks here at Amazon, I have some friends at Amazon, some of which who work in HR, and they basically said that in the morning you get it like before you even get into your computer, you have a screen, and the screen is like, how happy are you? And how happy are you with your boss? How happy are you? And so they're trying, and this gal was in econometrics, and she was looking at doing analysis on like how does happiness and all this data that we correlate every single day
Wow.
correlate to actual results. And so I thought
Yeah,
that was
interesting.
really interesting. It's literally like a really tuning into millennials and this kind of pulse, right? Like, how am
Right.
I? Like, let me think about how happy I am and what.
But see, I
Yeah.
think that's a problem. I mean, and I know I'm a boomer, but
Okay.
uh, but I think the pulse idea, or keeping pulse, but I think there needs to be education along the way, right? Okay,
Okay.
if we think about the law of averages of life, right? Most days fall within, yeah, they're okay. I mean,
Yeah,
they're sort
six
of,
or seven out of 10. Like 10
yeah, yeah,
being amazing day, 6 or 7, I would
yeah,
say most days for me.
right. And that's welcome to life. And so, I mean, there may be some individuals at some periods of time in their life where, lots of days are really good, but that's not most of their life, right?
Right.
and not for most people. And so for most of us, over time, most days are average.
Right.
And we need, not that we stay there, but that's sort of like, there's good days and bad days, and we need to educate people. Now, in fact, one of the things I was taking notes before we talked is that there's an interesting psychological principle of whatever you either have done or seen is what you're most likely to see next.
Hmm.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
often. So, for example, just a personal example, a while ago, I bought a new used truck. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I live in the Midwest
Mm-hmm.
and I live out in the country, so I bought a red truck. The next day and the next week, I couldn't believe how many red trucks and red vehicles I saw on the road. Now, did they all show up at once?
Yeah.
No, but if I say, okay, pay attention to whatever's green in your office,
Okay,
okay,
got it. So then you're saying that if I'm doing a pulse survey that says, "Are you happy? Are you happy? Are you happy?" I'm going to be focusing on, "Am I happy all the time?" Because I'm getting hypnotized into thinking this is the only one factor, and I'm monitoring us throughout
yeah,
time.
and actually, I mean, I think a healthy way of using it is about gratitude, right? Is to be
Mm,
thankful for things. So, like I'm sitting here and I'm looking out the window. It's a beautiful sunny day with blue skies and all that.
yeah.
It also happens to be cold, but I can either focus on the positives, and if we focus on positives, we're actually more likely to see other positives. Versus if I start to ask you, I mean, you said you had sort of a crazy time. If I
Hmm.
say, okay, CJ, what all has gone wrong in the last
Yeah.
24 hours?
Yeah. And I'd have a long
Boom,
list.
you got a long list
Right.
versus, hey, how things worked out. Okay.
Ah, I see. So it's almost if you were to actually give someone a little pulse, it would be like, "What are you grateful for today?"
Exactly. And
If
we
you're
know
gonna
that
like pound them every single day, might as well have them
exactly.
open up going, "What are you grateful for today?"
Yeah. And in fact, I just sent out a blog about Thanksgiving and gratefulness, and how there's good research that shows that people who keep a gratitude log of the three things they, thankful for that day tend to be happier, less depressed, more energy, yada, yada. So, uh, yeah, if we're
Yeah,
going to
if you're
focus
gonna
on something,
pulse, yeah, if you're gonna like sit and pulse me every day, but and just so people know, I don't know if this is exactly, I'm approximating what I
yeah,
think
yeah,
Amazon does, but I think it's wonderful that I think the benefit, whether it's daily, whether I got the story correct, whether it's the happiness, I'm not even sure. It's something in this marker
I got
of
it. I got
pulsing.
it.
Um, but I think the important thing, though, to go back to what you're saying, is it's about frequency. It's not just waiting till the annual review to say, here's what I appreciate, because what an employee remembers is what they have to fix,
Hmm.
not exactly what you like about them. So, what are some good ways of I mean, is it, and I think part of what you're talking about with gifts is it has to be authentic. It can't be just like a little reminder. Please remind Paul why you appreciate him today.
Yeah.
What's
Or you give a Christmas card. I mean, I have a relative who works for a really large, probably one of the largest health organizations. And a couple years ago, everybody in the organization got the same Christmas card or holiday card with a electronic signature from CEO with a drum roll, please, $5 Target gift card. Now, if that doesn't make you feel valued, I don't know what does, right? I
yeah.
mean, it's like, why did you even go to the problem
It's
of
like
doing this?
an anti-gift.
Yeah. So how can we diss our people? Oh, I know. We'll give them a $5 gift card. So anyway.
All right, so
So
it's the annual review. And what I'm hearing you say is like, maybe best practices are to move it to more frequency and then to have more authentic expressions of appreciation for people throughout the whole year, not just the annual review.
which is important tying into the five languages is that words don't get it for everybody, right? I mean, our research shows that about 40, it's the most common language appreciated in workplaces, 45%, but that means 55% like something else. And so, and I had somebody, a leader tell me, he said, yeah, telling me I'm appreciated doesn't do it for me. And it turned out his language was quality time,
Mm,
and and it wasn't always work related. I mean, he happened to be a coach, and if you went and hung out with him at practice, I mean, he lit up because you showed, interest in what was important to him and was part of his life.
Okay, so 45% is just
Words.
appreciate.
Words
words.
of affirmation. Yeah.
Words of affirmation. The second, 4% is gifts, I think you said. And then what are the
Six.
other
Yeah.
6%
Six.
is gifts.
Uh-huh.
So
So
what's
then
the
quality time is about 26%,
mm-hmm.
and acts of service. And by the way, quality time is not necessarily one-on-one time with the manager. I mean, it used to be that there was a saying, you don't leave a job, you leave your supervisor or your boss. It's less true for younger workers, that
Mm.
collegial relationships are more important. And so
Mm.
lots of times they don't want time with their supervisor, but they like to hang out with their friends, lunch, all that.
Um,
So, and that's how they feel valued. I mean, they feel like,
mm.
hey, you value and appreciate me by spending time. Um,
Oh. So you mean, so if it's not by your boss, it's actually allowing, or like not allowing, but
Maybe
understanding that it
facilitate.
comes in. Yeah. So it's like, hey, do you guys want to have a group lunch? Or do you guys, let's have a meet your partner or meet your friends lunch.
But see, and here's you're filtering it in this way, and that is that the appreciation needs to be structured to come from the manager or supervisor. One of the things we found is that effective sort of a culture of appreciation is not just top down, but it's that we teach team members how to show appreciation to one another.
Mm.
So it's about, hey, we're going to go, watch the Seahawks lose to the Chiefs, which is my team, and you want to come, and so it's being invited to do that,
Right.
or that somebody stops by and checks in and sees how you're doing,
Right.
or virtually remote wise, it's like one of the things we did research on remote workers, and quality time actually goes up for them. It's more around 30%, and a key aspect is connecting by video. That just
Mm.
just hearing an email or just a phone call is okay, but they really value the personal connection through a video conference.
Interesting. Okay. And then I want to cover the last thing as we close is the, layoffs happen during this time during a year or two. Is there any good way to do that, or are there best practices with respect to laying off and how to do it with grace and love?
You know, I'm not an expert in that, but I will tell
Right.
you a couple things. One, I just had a conversation with a friend of mine who's a vice president of personnel and had to lay a long-term employee and sort of a leader off. And uh, two principles that I both heard and observed and have seen. One is you got to be authentic. I mean, it's like this is why you left or why we're letting you go. You don't beat around the bush, but also you're just direct about it, and you can communicate a message of personal. I'm sorry this had to happen. For you as a person, but this is what we need to do for the organization. Um, but don't schmooze around it. Don't and you try to be respectful. You do it in a way that's not embarrassing to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Depending, where that happens, when it happens, that kind of stuff. I think it's that whole thing of, how would I like this to go if this happened to me? I think a key skill that we're missing in our culture is it's called perspective taking. Stop and think, how would this look or feel from, their point of view
Okay, so
versus,
let's do a couple practice rounds. All right. So let's say that you're
okay,
firing me
yeah,
because I am consistently not delivering on my deliverables. Whether
okay,
it's like I didn't hit my numbers or like for whatever reason I'm not delivering. You've given me a couple of chances, but I'm
right,
not delivering.
right.
So fire me.
So, so CJ, I'm started have to report that we're going to need to terminate you as an employee. Uh, as we've talked before, you haven't met the standards that we have for the position, and tried to help you with that and improve it. Hasn't happened for the good of the company and the customers. We just got to find somebody that can and is willing to get the job done. So, and then you talk about
Yeah, but I
whatever.
told you I tried. I mean, there are all good reasons. This year was a really hard year because of blah 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 blah
Yeah,
blah
yeah,
blah.
yeah.
Excuse blah 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 blah.
Right. Yeah,
I
and
can't
I
believe you're
understand.
doing this to me. I'm
Right,
like, I
right,
was expecting, like, I
right.
thought you were going to here to promote me, and here you're actually fire me because I did really help. I did so much better this term,
Yeah,
this
and
quarter.
and and I understand that it's never a good time for anybody, but the things that we're measuring and that we need from you in this position just haven't happened. And I understand you may view it differently, but that's sort of what we've seen and what we've documented, what the data says. And so we're just going to have to make a transition here and try to help make that go the best it can for you.
Yeah, what I like is that you're just direct, but I have to tell you when if someone said I'm firing you, like they don't hear anything else afterwards. They're just kind
Right.
of like in a shock.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, yeah. And exactly, that's a great point, is that most terminations should not last more than 15 minutes, usually 10 minutes or less. If you go
Mm,
longer than that, it's just a waste of time because they're not hearing anything,
yeah,
not getting anything
right.
done. And so, and the more that you can have, actually, I think it's a great point. The more you can have in writing a sheet of whatever their next steps are, or what to give them, because
That's a great idea.
they're not going to hear it, and they're going to forget it, or they're going to mishear it. And so you give it to them in writing. Now, obviously, the attorneys, have to sign off on that kind of stuff, but so that, yeah, because when that shock hits,
They're
you just,
gone like it. But if you have, you can tell them and then give them a sheet like, here are your next steps. Here are the things we talked about. Because otherwise, they're just like, what happened? My whole life just got imploded. All right. So then, how about so that's one scenario. You just didn't hit your requirements. Other kind of scenarios are like, we are going under, we have to lay people off. Is there a good way of doing that? Or, I mean, it seems like you just get a notice. Like what happens is people get a notice, which I seems
hmm,
bizarro to me that people get
yeah,
notice.
I don't think that's because we're people, right? I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
it impacts their life, and that may be sort of the easy way out from a.
Yeah. Did you get the email that says you're laid off? Like, just,
Yeah, I don't get that. I mean, maybe at a very,
I've seen it happen.
oh wow, yeah, I think
Okay.
that's.
What's a better way? Let's say that you have to lay
Well,
me off.
I think if that person, whoever it is, they have some kind of supervisor, right? And
Yeah.
so that's part of the supervisor's responsibilities. Or if it gets handed off to the next level up,
Okay. Lay me
and
off, Paul. Tell me how you're
so,
going
all
to
right,
show me what it looks like.
CJ, and it could be. I mean, it's like CJ, you are a good worker. You do what we asked, but in spite of that, as a company, we are having to make cutbacks because we are losing money. In your position, I think, I mean, because that would probably have to be true. Your position has been eliminated, and so you no longer have the opportunity to be employed here, even though it's nothing that you necessarily did yourself. But it's not there, and here are the steps that we have in place to try to help you find a job. And if it's true for you as a person, say, and I'd be glad to be a reference for you, so that as you're looking for new work, they can hear that it wasn't about you, but it was a company issue, or just restructuring, however they want to say it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think in both cases, what I like are they're just kind of next steps to address what is next to come, right? I know this may be a shock to you, so I've
right,
actually written some things down that could help, and that you may want to know, like what happens to things like benefits and because there's this kind of like initial shock, and then it's like then it goes to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, okay, what about my benefits? What about my bonuses? When's my
right,
last day? What are you going to do? Can I have access to my computer? Like all those kind of logistical things that you just want to know, but not at that moment. Like you don't even know to
yeah,
ask because you're like,
right,
your whole world has been blown up. But I think that what you're offering is, I think, a really good idea, which is, and here's the next steps. We are going to support you in these following ways. I'm going to support you. The organization is going to support you. And here's what it looks like, the wind down looks like. Because otherwise, they walk away just devastated. And then all these questions come up, and they may not have maybe a weekend, whatever. They may not see
yeah.
you.
And again,
Um,
I think if you use, and I'm going to sound like a, Johnny one note here, but I mean, if you think about them as a person, what are the implications for them as a person,
yeah.
and what are they going to want to know? Not necessarily right now, but at least be able to find out about access to their computer, or whatever. Uh, I think, and some people are more, well, have more emotional intelligence than others, right? Have better
Hmm.
ways of relating. And if you're in a software firm, or computer science thing, and and some people just don't have those skills. It may not be best for the supervisor to do it. And that's another, sometimes you have the supervisor there, but somebody else runs the meeting, right?
That's a good idea too, where you're like, because I think this is probably the most conflictual thing to do, right? You're
Hmm.
telling someone that they're fired and it feels awful, right? You don't want to have someone be fired. And so having
And you're
someone
feeling
do it,
stressed about it,
yeah,
and that they may not know, but you had to choose between people, and you feel guilty about having to let them go, and you know their personal situation. So lots of times, I think it is helpful, and I'm sure I've said things that attorneys would cringe at as far as from a legal point of view, but I think having somebody there also to affirm or confirm what was said or wasn't said, so that it's not a he said she said kind of thing. Um, and just somebody that can manage it better, especially if that's not your
yeah. Well,
fault.
this is, I think no one whose forte would this be? No one
Yeah.
has this forte. And I think sadly, this is something that comes up during the end of the year a lot. So I think we've handled every single end of the year scenario, both from holiday parties.
Except I got to say,
Yeah.
except for getting drunk at the company
Oh,
party,
God.
that was not good. It came up a lot, man. It's like,
Really?
oh yes, I was surprised that it was like 20-25% people who said, I'm really offended by, and it can be managers and super, getting drunk and doing inappropriate stuff. So watch that.
You should have seen our Microsoft parties in the heyday. There would be like I mean, it was like almost like a drunken orgy. It was bad. There would just be like shrimp and like gifts and like lavish whatevers all over the place. And that's not happening anymore, but it used to. And the kinds of stuff that people were doing, I was shocked because I'm from an Asian background. So I was like, really, this is not what you should be doing at work.
Right.
Time out, people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I get it. All right. Any other closing words before we say happy holidays to our listeners?
Just thanks for having me. Always enjoy the time. And yeah, if people want to find out more about what we do, just our website's appreciationatwork.com. It's the word at.
We're
So
going to have you back to It means so much to me that you're listening to the show and love your support in any way by giving me comments below or to subscribe to the show or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.